Welcome to LSB Feaster's Radio Aircheck and Classic TV channel.
With a decision that the legislature would be exceeding its powers by enacting a bill for construction of a sports stadium. That ruling was made by the Massachusetts Supreme Court. The court rejected practically every provision of the bill which would authorize the Massachusetts Turnpike Authority to construct a stadium. The High Court did not rule out the possibility that the legislature could come up with a bill which would be considered legal and constitutional. There were 1,600 invited guests at the gala dinner celebrating the successful landing by American astronauts on the moon, but Charles Lindbergh, the first man to make a solo flight across the Atlantic, was not there. Others who were not there were Mrs. Mamie Eisenhower and Jack Benny, former President Harry Truman, former President Lyndon Johnson, Governor Nelson Rockefeller, former First Lady Jacqueline Onassis, and billionaire Howard Hughes. WBZ News Time, 4 minutes after 10.
Hey, get your cold beer. Hey, get your Valentine. Hey, get your cold, cold beer. Get your ice cold Valentine beer. To be crisp, a beer must be icily light, smooth and delicious, precisely right. Lively, cold, and crystally clear, the crisp refresher. Valentine, Valentine beer. The crisp refresher. Valentine, Valentine beer.
Make the three-ring sign and ask the man for Valentine Premium Lager Beer.
The Soviet Union is tight-lipped about its recent unmanned moon probe, but in a terse announcement today said that Zond 7 had returned to Earth following its mission to photograph the moon. Western scientists were amazed when the spacecraft made only one orbit around the moon and then returned. The weather word for Boston and vicinity tonight: fair with low temperatures 65 to 70 degrees, variable winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Tomorrow, mostly sunny with high temperatures in the 80s, except near 80 along the coast. South to southwest winds 10 to 15 miles an hour. The present temperature 77 degrees. The top story of the hour: 22 railroad tank cars of poison gas are on their way east from the National Arsenal at Denver, with the permission of the Transportation Department, which allegedly even lifted some regulations to make the shipment possible. And that's the 10 o'clock WBZ report with portions recorded. I'm Streeter Stewart.
254-5678.
Hello, America. Welcome back. This is Jerry Williams, hour number 3. Tonight with us, Addis Williams of the New England Collectors Association, Louis Tanner, director of the American Collectors Association, Bill Rose, a former collector from the state of Nebraska who now works in another business, and Bill Martin, who has been working with the poor in terms of their collections and collection techniques, and he's executive director of North Shore NASCAP and works under the poverty program, as you know. Let's get right to the calls so we can get to them for the next half hour. Hello.
Good evening, Jerry. Listen, I'll tell you, I would like to take up the cudgel for the middle class or upper middle class income person who gets in debt, and because I'm taking the cudgel up for, we'll say, that gal that was out in the in her pool when the collector called, and I think I can give you a set of circumstances. And I hope I can try to bring the point across, because I've seen this happen so many times.
He didn't
First
say.
of all,
I just want to make this side remark that when she said she was in the pool, she didn't say that she was in the pool with the collections.
No, but I mean,
and that they have some payments to make on the pool, like about 72.
Yeah, well, that's true too, Jerry. But to begin with, I was a sucker for buying just about anything until I took a course on salesmanship myself, and I found out about that you physically put the pen in the person's hand 12 times get them to sign a contract there, and you probably came in and tell them that something was going to cost $700, but when you go out it's $3,200. But that's getting away from the point. We'll take a person like yourself, because I think you have told your story of how you own your house, how you like your home and so forth. In a way, it's an investment, it's security for you, am I right?
Yes.
But the only reason that you own a home today and the type of home that you own is because you have previously owned other homes and have spent many years paying mortgage payments and building up equity. Am I right?
I guess so, right?
Well, this is true with many people there, that they get, as they go up the ladder, they buy one home, and then maybe they get that mortgage paid off, and they use that first home for a down payment on their second home, and then all of a sudden they're in a beautiful home, and then through sickness or maybe a job transfer, or maybe the husband loses the company just goes out of business, and all of a sudden he's middle-aged and nobody wants to hire him.
Right, any set of circumstances come
Any set of circumstances there. You know, the thing that bugs me about these collection people is they want to physically ruin you because you happen to own a home. They want you to sell it. They don't care. They want you to sell it at a loss. They don't care where you go. They know that it's probably just as cheap for you to stay where you are. You can pay your bills just as well, just the way you are, because you have probably reduced the mortgage and so forth, and you do have equity, and you're getting a tax break on your income and so forth. But they don't think of this. Right away they think, he's got a better home than I have. He can afford to pay his bills. They don't, that's as far as they go. Their reasoning stops right there.
Well, I'll let Mr. Williams and Mr. Tanner take that question. A guy got a pretty good home, set of circumstances. He's makes himself maybe $15,000 a year. He's up to here in debt. He's paying off the pool. He's paying off this. He has succumbed to the machinations of this society, which is a consumer society. Now what?
All right. If a man is making $50 a week and he spends $60 a week, he's in trouble.
Right.
If a man is making $500 a week and he spends $600 a week, he's also in trouble. Now, collectors are human beings, and the members of the New England Collectors Association are not only human beings, but they're well instructed and well educated in the sociological problems of human beings. And a man in a condition such as you cite is not treated by a collector with a blockage in his mind. The collector understands the problems that faces a man regardless of his income and is willing to deal with that individual situation if the debtor understands that he has a responsibility to his creditors. And if he comes to the creditor and to the collector with an open mind and a willingness to solve his problem and to solve his obligation, the collector will come halfway to meet him and work out something that's reasonable.
Well, I'll tell you now, let me just sort of go a little further on this about this reasonableness. Now, to begin with, the collector comes to your home. He wants a personal history of every dime you have. There are some things, there could be circumstances, and I've seen them happen, in which I just would not want to tell somebody the circumstances under which I had to use a certain portion of my income for one reason or another. But as I say, if you approach the collector and you say, well, look, right now, he wants you to come down to a dollar-and-cent statement that he wants a commitment there every week or every month, but you may not be in a position to make that commitment. You may be in such a bind that you can't make a commitment maybe for 6 months from now. You don't know. Maybe it's going to be 8 months. You have the intention to pay, but you don't know just when. You know that sooner or later that you're going to come out of it because you might have been in deeper before or through one thing or another, but at this stage of the game there, you cannot make a positive commitment there. You tell them. What happens then?
Lou, could I ask a question? In the example that this gentleman cites, what would be wrong with, I can understand a circumstance where a guy had, say, a debt of $1,000, and I think we're talking of a hypothetical question where a man is making a good income where the indebtedness would be pretty high, say it's $1,000. Would it be possible for the collection agency to negotiate an agreement with this individual that, okay, he starts paying in 6 months, but he pays interest on the debt because he is really using your money?
It's not only possible, but this is a technique that is quite often used in the industry.
Well, as a matter of fact, Bill, we for our part like to shy away from interest rates. But by the same token, the one thing that a good, enlightened collector is interested in is a debtor who comes forward honestly and in good conscience and convinces the collector that he wants to meet an obligation, that he has a set of circumstances at any particular time whereby he's not able to meet the obligation now, but convinces the collector that he desires to reduce the obligation at the earliest possible time. There is no good collector in this Commonwealth, or anyway, who will not work out with that man, sit down with him, and understand his situation as if the collector himself were in the same situation, and work out an arrangement whereby this man can pay it off in terms of the debtor not being pushed to the wall.
Is it, for instance, the situation I ran into is apparently the collection agencies have used code names in terms of the people that you call. You get a letter from a collection agency, and this actually happened. It was this one whose name shall go unmentioned. The thing was signed by Josie Smith. You call up for Josie Smith, that's a code name, and that means that she's handling a particular group of accounts. I never got to talk to, because I thought it was a reasonable situation that could have been solved if I could get to talk to the manager. I couldn't get to talk to the manager until I called the bank commissioner, who then called the owner of the business, and he was on the phone within half an hour to me. Couldn't it be, in the circumstance this gentleman is stating, that the collector that's handling his account is maybe not a terribly sophisticated individual? If a gentleman in the situation a gentleman like this that we have on the phone could get to the manager of the collection agency, then it seems to me these are both men of substantial income, presumably good spenders in the community, and it's a loss to the industry, it's a loss to the market to lose a guy like that. But how the heck can this gentleman, with the internal mechanisms that do exist in collection agency, get to talk to a responsible person?
I don't think you can state that it is difficult to talk to, any more difficult, put it that way, to talk to the manager of a collection agency than it is to the manager of any other business. Sometimes I wish it were not so.
Do you have code names, phony names?
No, sir. Neither.
Is it Mr. Irving or whoever it may be, who handles all one set, and that he never deals with his right name with the.
No, sir. Our people use their true names.
What we do normally in a bigger collection agency, Jerry, will assign a certain group of names to one collector, usually by dividing the alphabet, simply because it's easier for one man to become responsible for a certain group of accounts. But the door is always open.
Well, why shouldn't it be? That's where you make your money.
Absolutely.
The door is always open for any debtor to reach the top level of a collection agency.
Yeah, I don't think this gentleman says you have to bear your financial soul to. You don't have to bear your financial soul to anybody, sir.
You don't have to, but you can ask them.
Well, I mean, the point is, if you don't, then they label you uncooperative.
Well, then, so you're labeled uncooperative. So, do me something.
But I mean, the point is that there are many people in the middle income bracket today who can be sorely pushed to the wall, and maybe the husband's job requires them to live quite high, and then all of a sudden he no longer has that particular position or has lesser amount of money to deal with, and they're in trouble. But the fellow that you owe money to, if you have a piece of property there, he figures that you should put that on the market and sell it there, and you may only owe him $700, and you might have maybe
You know where the door is.
equity, but he doesn't care whether you lose $15,000 as long as he gets his $700.
Well, that's bad advice. What you ought to do is show him the door. When somebody suggests that you sell your house or tell you how to handle your affairs, that is my advice to you. Show him the door. These fellas are supposed to get their just due, but not on their suggestion. You should have an attorney or somebody else handle those situations for you.
Well, I mean, as I say, I just have happened to have been involved with a few people that I know.
I think most of the people in this collectibles are in this category, are they not?
Absolutely.
Right, most of the people are poor people.
I saw one person...
Well, sir, we don't want to get into another person, but thank you very much. It was a good example to set because that's the kind of person that probably owes most of the money in the United States. It's 10:19 on WBZ. We'll return in a moment.
A perfect, beautiful day. When was the last time you had one? The kind of day when you find exactly the right kind of job, paying the best salary around. Tomorrow, many of these jobs will be filled, and that means that today is the time to start looking for them. In the Help Wanted section of the Herald Traveler. This year alone, the Herald Traveler will be offering 80,000 jobs. That's a figure we couldn't always quote, but this year our Help Wanted section is nice and fat. And every conceivable type of work is listed, from full-time to part-time, from beginning clerk typist jobs all the way to top engineering positions. And the Herald Traveler has listed them alphabetically to make finding what's right for you as easy for you to find as possible. So if you want to start moving in your career, let the Herald Traveler give you a boost. Check our Help Wanted section at the start of what looks like a great day. And 10 to 1, it'll turn out that way. The Herald Traveler, a great place to find things in.
10:20 on WBZ. Next call at 2545678. Good evening, you're on the air.
Hello?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes, will you speak up louder, please?
Yes.
Yes.
I'd like to ask your guest a question.
Which one?
I really don't know.
The collectors or the other gentleman?
No, the collectors.
All right, they're here.
About 4 years ago, we had a problem with a bank, and my husband was out of work for, 3 weeks, and we got behind on our bills. We sent them money. They used to send us a bill, and it used to say the amount, like $10 a month. And we sent them what we could afford, maybe 5, not the 10. Now, at the time, we got a bad credit rating from these people. What I was wondering is, how long does your credit rating stay bad from these people? I mean, what is it, how does it affect your credit rating when somebody calls in-town Boston to the credit bureau? What do they say?
All right, anybody want to...
There has recently been a statute of limitations...
7 years, is it?
Of 7 years placed on negative information with regard to a credit rating.
Well, keep in mind, however, that Mr. Williams just said that that was recently a piece of legislation, but they could have found that preceding that up to 20 years.
Yeah, I think a point to remember is that derogatory information is left on the record unless the creditor makes a positive action to have it removed, and unfortunately most of them aren't that interested.
Well, how do you do that? Because I'll tell you why.
Well, you ought to go right to the credit bureau. The credit bureau concerned, ask to see your record.
You can do that?
Yes, ma'am, without a fee, too.
Well, you know why? Because I just went, as a matter of fact, today, and I'm very upset about it, to purchase a major appliance. And I didn't realize at the time, which was my own fault when I bought this, that the people that I bought it through went through a finance company. And if I had known that, I would have gone directly to a bank. Anyway, they called me, and they told me that I had to call this finance company. And I called, and they said they wanted my husband and I down there to sign a paper. So, of course, once I found out it was a finance company, I didn't want to go along with it. Well, I went down there to get my deposit back from, giving it to them when I bought this appliance. And they told me that my credit had been disapproved at one place and approved at another place. And this is what we could not understand, because we just bought, less than 2 months ago, a brand new car, and we took out the loan from a bank. We had no problem whatsoever taking out that loan.
What you should do is go down to the credit bureau involved and sit down and have a small consultation with somebody there. Tell them you want to see your record.
Right.
And they have to provide that to you without any charge.
Without a charge.
Without a charge.
I thought there was a $7 charge.
No charge. I think that has been made a matter of law.
That was part of the same ruling.
Okay.
All right, thank
you
very
much. Next call to 254-5678. Hello?
Hello, Jerry?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to comment a little bit on what you're talking tonight because I've been in this business for about 20 years.
What business is that,
The
sir?
collection business.
Oh, you're in the collection business?
Yeah.
Oh, you sounded like a deadbeat to me at first. I mean, if I had confronted you on the phone, I would say that's a deadbeat for sure.
Well, maybe a good deadbeat makes a good collector.
Could be, right.
Well, you know, it's been my experience over these years that the person that has to be turned over to a collection agency or the account is this type of party or business falls into there are certain so-called, to use a phrase, certain breed of cats, almost without exception. They've been this way all their life, and they will continue to be this way until they pass from this scene.
So you got to deal with them in a certain way, right?
Well, you have different approaches for different people.
Mm-hmm.
But
how can you have a different approach for a different person when you don't even see them?
Well, you just assume that after many years in this business, you know that this is a type of person.
Yeah. Do you have on your record whether they're colored or white?
No, because it's in the suburban Boston, which is in the affluent communities like Brookline, Newton, Weston, Wellesley, and so forth. It's just the same there as it would be in the so-called, say, Roxbury.
Sure.
A little bit more in Roxbury, but the other people are still living so far over their head, it's not that they're living far over their head, but it's a way of life with them.
Yeah, and the assumption is that if they come into your hands, they are a deadbeat.
Almost without exception.
Interesting assumption.
Well,
Jerry
you get
Williams, wait a minute, this is Mr. Tanner. He wants to speak to this. Mr. Tanner.
Every time somebody uses the word deadbeat, my timbers shiver.
Well.
A person who pays a bill is not a deadbeat.
Right.
A deadbeat is a person who doesn't pay a bill.
Right.
And runs away from meeting his obligations.
Yeah.
There are very few deadbeats, and if you're in the collection business, you ought to know that.
I certainly disagree with that. I'm making the statement that the type of people that are turned over to collection agencies have a way of life, and this is terribly slow payment or with the intention of beating out whomever they're dealing with.
Well, maybe a certain type of debtor is turned over to a certain type of collection agency. I certainly haven't had too much experience with deadbeats in my business.
Well, this is after 20 years in a legitimate business and working for a very fine company that certainly does not attempt in any way to hurt people. As a matter of fact, provide services at a fair and even below cost of what is generally charged. This is what I found. This is the way I found it after these many years of experience. These people, I was in just last Christmas time into a very large discount house here in Boston area, which advertises profusely in the Boston papers, and I happened to see a man in there that I know very well, and whom comes into the place where I am, and every week there's a collector or a moonlighting cop or somebody in the a deputy sheriff or something looking for this fellow.
Yeah, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Suppose you're dealing with a client. Suppose your client tells you, I want to go after this guy. And suppose he has a revolving charge account.
Yeah.
And suppose he's charging guys interest on their interest. How would you feel about that client?
Well, we don't do that.
No, but I'm not asking you now. Suppose the client, the retailer, that you're dealing for.
Yeah.
Suppose this this particular retailer has a revolving charge plan,
Yeah, I know.
right?
Yeah.
And suppose at the end of every month, what he does is he charges interest on the interest.
Yeah.
Now, how do you think is that ethical?
No, that is not ethical.
But would you go out and collect a bill for an unethical client?
Yes, generally speaking, I wouldn't touch hospitals. I wouldn't touch employment offices. I wouldn't touch jewelry chains. because number one, both of those others are both of the first two that I mentioned are essential to people just staying alive.
Yeah, all I'm saying is there's all the morality isn't on your side. You say
no. They certainly not. I blame the businessman. I blame the American type of business in which they shoot for a volume, and the one that's left whole in the bag, as it is so much in life, is the good person who pays their bills.
I guess it was about 3 or 4 years ago when they started bank credit cards in Chicago. They were giving them out indiscriminately to people, and people were going out charging everything. Hey, baby, let's go out and charge something. And they went out and charged the whole world. And what happened is that those banks went into deep debt. And serves them right. That's what I say, because they were giving out charge cards indiscriminately to people who had no business having that kind of charge.
I agree with you 100%.
Well,
the businessman is in great, but I'm talking principally about the small businessman who attempts to operate a small business, and you can particularly a service business, you can operate out of a cellar or a garage, and you can operate with second-hand equipment. But there's one thing you can't operate without, and that's money.
Well, you're a jolly good fellow. I'd hate to meet you across the other end of the telephone.
Well, I never put anybody in jail, but I know that these type of people, this is after, as I said, after many, many years' experience.
Yes, I understand what you're saying.
They fall into a certain group.
Right.
And you would believe that both of the two previous people on the phone are lying?
Well,
they're deadbeats.
Waiting for Jerry, I had turned off my radio.
Okay, well, you didn't hear that. And thank you very much for calling. It's 10:30. Here's the deal you want now at the terms you want. Save at Operation Big Push at Westminster Dodge, 720 Morrissey Boulevard in Dorchester. They're now celebrating 40 years in business, their 40th anniversary, and there are now, at the end of the model year, 221 brand new Dodges available. Any color, any model, immediate delivery. Westminster Dodge happens to be Boston's oldest and largest Dodge and Dodge truck dealer. That's a heck of a record. They're making an effort to clear out the remaining inventory of 69 Dodges. And here's what you can get tomorrow if you mention that Jerry Williams sent you a brand new Dodge, 1969 Dodge Dart Swinger, two-door hardtop, for the unbelievably low price of $2,249, $2,249. And there's a brand new Coronet, too, a two-door sedan with automatic, molding group, power steering, for the low price of $2,629. And similar savings on all the models. Bank financing available. Just drive in the door, make the deal, and drive home at Westminster Dodge, 720 Morrissey Boulevard, Dorchester. Mention that Jerry Williams sent you. You're dealing with Westminster Dodge. WBZ. And WBZ FM, Group W Westinghouse Broadcasting in Boston.
When the delivery boy shows up with your week's food shopping, it sure looks like a lot of groceries. But does it look like even more when you try to cram it into your refrigerator? If you had a Westinghouse frost-free 25 side-by-side refrigerator freezer, you'd have enough storage space to feed a family of 5 for 3 weeks. Yet the Westinghouse side-by-side is less than a yard wide. I'm Frank Gifford asking you to compare this kind of refrigeration space and compare other features before you buy. For instance, with the Westinghouse automatic ice maker, you would never have to borrow ice cubes again. This Westinghouse ice maker is optional, so you can buy it with the refrigerator now or later. Compare the Westinghouse 7-Day Meat Keeper. It keeps 16 pounds of meat fresh for a full week without freezing. Compare storage capacity, ice maker, meat keeper. Compare all the features. You will buy Westinghouse. You can be sure if it's Westinghouse.
All right, now these gentlemen have been here for 2.5 hours, so I'm going to ask them to make a final statement if they'd like to wind it up tonight. First to Mr. Addis Williams, the New England Collection Association. Thank you very much for being with us tonight and answering all the questions and hearing from all the collectors.
Well, thanks for having us, Jerry. We just would like the people on the other end of their radio sets out there to know that we're really not the big bad wolves that so many people think we are. And that if they do have a problem and should run into a situation where they have to deal with one of our agencies in the Commonwealth or wherever they might be listening, that they should not be afraid to talk to a collector, because a collector is a human being also. A collector has personal problems. They have children and they have homes and they have cars and they have sickness. And sometimes they have financial problems also, probably as frequently as any other person would. I would like to recommend that you not be afraid to contact us if you run into a situation where you run into debt, if you run into a situation where you receive correspondence from a collection agency. don't be afraid to contact us. And on the other hand, if you run into a situation where you feel that you're being unduly harassed, or you feel as though somebody is using tactics to collect a bill that are against the rules promulgated by the Bank Commissioner of the Commonwealth, that you contact the Bank Commissioner or reasonable public authority in your own community and advise them of this, because it's only through your action that you're going to get the deadwood out of our industry and enable yourself to feel comfortable when dealing with a problem of having fallen into financial bind. Thanks
All right,
again,
a final
Jerry.
word from Bill Rose. Bill is a former collector who worked in Nebraska for a while and got out of the business because he didn't like what he was doing. Bill, any final words of advice to those people in Nebraska or Waukegan or, for that matter, Attleboro?
Like was said earlier, where's Nebraska? No, I'd like to thank you for asking me to be on the program, Jerry, and after hearing that last commercial about Just Say Jerry Williams sent me where maybe that's where the whole problem lies right there.
Could be.
That, to those out there that have bill collectors after them, I hope that most of them are mild-mannered bill collectors like myself, like I was, because I couldn't put my heart into it in some cases there. We had quite a few different cases come up, and like I said, I couldn't, what I mean is by I couldn't put my heart in it, it's just that I couldn't see the poor guy down the street there getting hung up on something where, like having his wages attached or his bank account there or something. So at that I felt that it was time to get out.
Thank you very much, Bill. Nice to have you here. Mr. Lewis Tanner, Director of the American Collectors Association.
Yes, Jerry, I'd like to suggest to those people who are listening that most of the things that people in the United States buy today are on credit. It's easy to obtain credit. It's easy to buy things that you can't afford. One resolve that everyone ought to make, whether they're single or have a large family, to be responsible about what they buy on credit, to watch their budget, to understand their income, to set aside something for a rainy day so that they won't have to be visited by a collector.
Thank you very much. And Bill Martin, who works with the poverty program. Bill?
Yeah, I would just like to pick up on some of the suggestions that were made by the men in the industry themselves, because I think the industry can do more to